My next guest has spent years documenting the rise of the far left and its threat to the American way of life. He also worked in the Reagan White House. His latest book is a powerful book. It's called The United States of Socialism: Who's Behind It, Why It's Evil, and How to Stop It. Dinesh D'Souza, we're so glad to have you with us. I'm going to get right to it, Dinesh. This seems like that this whole socialist movement in America is organized and not organic. Is that a fair assessment?
It is. It's organized certainly at the retail level when you see these Antifa, Black Lives Matter thugs on the street. When they show up, someone has strategically placed a large box of bricks for them the previous night to smash windows with. So this is organized at that level. It's also organized at the funding level. It's organized at the level that when these guys get arrested, they immediately have lawyers who pop up like a jack-in-the-box to defend them. They have powerful allies in the media, in Hollywood. They have friends in high places in the office of Mayor de Blasio, the mayor of Portland, the mayor of Berkeley. So this is not just a street gang. It's a paramilitary operation that is in a sense, functioning with the consent and at least tacit approval of the Democratic Party.
The title of your book is a little frightening, The United States of Socialism, because I think a lot of us would be just aghast that we're actually moving in that direction. But if we are, somebody's got to be paying for this. Who's behind it? Who's funding all of this stuff? Because, I mean, these kids who have nothing but a backpack and an iPhone, maybe they're trust fund babies, but it doesn't appear that they got the kind of dough to travel all over the world creating mayhem.
I think the big story is that socialism has migrated to the center of American politics, and it's taken over one of the major political parties. Now, the Democratic Party strategically decided not to go with an explicit socialist like Bernie Sanders. I think it was a bit too much for them to have a guy who honeymoons in Moscow and praises breadlines. What's he'll do next? What will he do next? Praise gulags? So they decided let's go with the rocking chair, creeping socialist Biden, because he seems less threatening, and yet we can have puppeteers and ventriloquists perhaps who are actually organizing everything that he does. So socialism has never been in the mainstream of American politics before, and it's a stunning fact that with the collapse of socialism around the world, at the end of the last century, we have seen this unbelievable comeback of socialism in the 21st century.
Dinesh, I think one of the powerful things you do in writing United States of Socialism is to talk about how it sounds so good. Free college. We're going to take care of all your student debt. Free food, free everything. It does sound appealing to a lot of people, but you also point out there's a hidden agenda, and it's fatal.
Ultimately, I think it only works in the sense that a gangster operation works. It revolts the conscience of ordinary people. I'd put it this way. If you were to tell someone, listen, go over to your neighbor's house, open his refrigerator and start eating his food, look around at his stuff and take whatever you want, and move it over to your house, most people would go, well, that's terrible. I wouldn't think of doing that. And if I did, I would feel awful about myself. My conscience really won't allow that. So the Democratic Party steps in and basically says, listen, they say, first of all, the stuff that's in his refrigerator and his house actually belongs to you. He's been stealing from you for centuries. And so you are entitled to his stuff. But the good news is you don't have to go get it. We'll get it for you. And I think this is partly why guys like de Blasio can't condemn the looters on the street all too strongly. Why? Because they're basically doing the same thing. They want to do in an organized way what the looters are basically doing in a disorganized way.
Dinesh, you may have just given this country the most succinct and maybe accurate depiction of what's going on with the whole socialist mentality. I've never heard it put so freshly and so very clearly. I hope that people get the book, because I know the whole book is that clear and that simple for people to understand. I want to get to the point of the danger of socialism. This is not just a different political ideology. Let's talk about why it matters that people are infiltrating the Democrat Party with socialist ideas, why it would destroy America as we know it.
Ultimately, socialism comes in the package of economic redistribution, but its real agenda is far bigger than that. In fact, if you go to a socialist conference today, a Democratic Socialist of America, you will see these eco-socialists, Afro-socialists, Islamo-socialists. Now, the striking thing is that many of these people care more about blacks and illegals than they do about the working class. They care more about abortion than the minimum wage. They care more about transgender bathrooms than they care about universal basic income. In other words, we're not just dealing with economic confiscation. We're dealing with a much broader cultural, I would say even moral and spiritual agenda, and that is to overturn what has been considered normalcy in America. They want up to be down. They want the front to be the back. They want the deviant to be the normal. And the most important thing is they don't even just want to see a legal or even a cultural change. They want to see everybody bow down to it and submit to it. Orwell actually has a very poignant scene in 1984 where Big Brother, the state, the socialist state, is trying to force a man, Winston, to admit that 2 + 2 is 5. He refuses to do it, so they subject him to sensory deprivation, no food, and ultimately he breaks down and he goes, okay, 2 + 2 is 5. Can I go now? And they go, no, Winston, you can't go, because you're just saying it's 5 because you know that's what we want you to hear.
Dinesh, Democrats didn't used to be socialists. They weren't that different than Republicans. There were different ideologies and mindsets, but we're seeing a stark difference today. It's not minor. It's significant. What happened, when, and who led this?
What happened is that the Democratic Party under Hillary and Obama became gangsterized. I saw this really in my own campaign finance case, where they were threatening to put all kinds of additional charges on me if I didn't submit to them and basically plead guilty. So what you have here is that the Democrats have realized that they can use the deep state, the police agencies of government, the IRS, the FBI, the DOJ, against political opponents. Now, notice that these deep state operations, this lawlessness at high levels, mirrors what Antifa is doing on the street. It's lawlessness in both cases, but in one case it's thugs on the street, in the other case it's thugs with badges, but it's thugs in both cases. So this, I think, is the #1 problem facing us, the need to root out this corruption that has somehow made its way into the mainstream of one of the major political parties.
Well, Dinesh, I hope people across America read your book. It is eye-opening. It's a little disturbing, quite frankly, but you document it, and I think that's a valuable service that you provide. Our thanks to Dinesh D'Souza for helping to sound a very crucial and important alarm against socialism. Right now, Keith Bilbrey, who is not a socialist, he's our announcer, and he's going to tell our listeners how they can get the important new book by Dinesh D'Souza. Keith?
The United States of Socialism is available now at Amazon and all major booksellers. You can also order it at DineshD'Souza.com. That's where you'll find all his books, movies, videos, and more. You can also book him to speak to your group. And on Twitter, follow him at Dinesh D'Souza.